back to my channel. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. If you are new, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for coming and visiting my channel. I hope you enjoy watching, and if you do, I would love for you to hang around and hit that subscribe button. And also welcome back to those who have been with me and are returning subscribers. Thank you so very much today for hanging out with me and visiting. So in today's video, I thought I would go ahead and share with you guys. So I've been seeing like a trend going around. My friend Teresa recently did one of these videos, and it is ranking your palettes that you got in 2020 from your least favorite to your most favorite, or vice versa. So instead of doing that, because I can't recall all of the palettes I got in 2020 because I have so many, I decided not to do that specific video because I couldn't recall all of the palettes that I had gotten in 2020. I thought I would come on here and share with you guys the palettes that I reached for the most in 2020. That I do remember. The palettes that I constantly would gravitate towards, want to use, and not just because I was in a palette challenge, but because they're some of my favorites. So I hope that you guys enjoy this video. Again, I just didn't want to do the other one because I couldn't recall all of the palettes I got in 2020, but I did want to share with you guys the palettes that I gravitated towards, reached for mostly in 2020, and always felt like I could use over and over and over. So yeah, and I still have plenty of palettes that I have yet to use, that I have received either purchased, been gifted, or used, or got from BoxyCharm, Ipsy. So I definitely am going to be working on getting those used. Today in this look, I did use for the first time my Natasha Denona palette. This is the Peak palette. This palette I did get from a BoxyCharm, and I'm so happy to have it. And I have to say that this is a very, very nice palette. The shades were very pigmented. So far, I am enjoying it. Like I said, I just did this look today. I did use every shade in this. But yeah, I do like the way that it turned out. The shades blended nicely. They were pigmented. They didn't have a ton of fallout. So I'm really happy to have this. Going to continue using that this week for sure. So let's just go ahead and get started. So this is not a super long video, but yeah. Okay, so let's start with this one first, since it is sitting here. I don't have a ton, but I do have a few that I really enjoyed in 2020 and constantly, you know, wanted to use. Fenty Beauty Moroccan Spice Palette. I did get this from BoxyCharm. They did a month where they gave all Fenty products for the box, and this was one of the items that I got. And initially when I got this palette, I wasn't really impressed with it, but as I got to playing in it, it became one of my favorites immediately. The shades don't look like, you know, like, wow, you're gonna be like, oh, they're so beautiful. But honestly, the looks that I was able to create with this palette were just so nice. The pigmentation was nice. They blended nicely, in my opinion. And it's just a more neutrals with a pop, maybe one pop of color. Then you have this kind of burgundy red, which could be a pop of color or just some depth. But I really and truly did enjoy this palette, and I constantly was reaching for it in 2020. It's just a beautiful palette. I don't hear enough good things said about it. I know there was a ton of mixed reviews on it. Some people loved it, some people didn't. Some people thought it was just okay. But honestly, I think this deserves a lot more love. Once you get into looking at it appearance-wise, you think, it's okay. But when you're getting into actually doing looks, I think it just has a lot more to it than what meets the eye, I guess is what you would say. So yeah, in 2020, I was constantly reaching for this, constantly repeating looks that I came up with this palette because I just absolutely loved it. Okay, 2 ABH palettes. You guys know my love for ABH. I love their palettes, and I constantly will repurchase them if there's a palette that I love and all of that. So These two I reached for a ton in 2020 because they're just beautiful. They're all beautiful, but all of them that I have are beautiful, but these two I reach for the most. The first one is the Sultry palette. It looks like that. And if you don't recall, here are the shades. So this reminds me a lot of a Natasha Denona palette. I can't remember the name at the moment, but I will try to put it on the screen when I edit and everything. This reminds me a lot of that. Now, the Natasha Denona doesn't have as many shimmers that this does, but it does kind of resemble, in my opinion. But this palette is absolutely gorgeous. You have a ton of neutrals. You have this really rich black here. You have this pop of color, which is called Bloom. On camera, it's definitely not coming up its true color because it's more of a corally, bright coral color. Not like an orange, but more coral side, but it's very, very bright and not as muted as it looks in the pan. And then you have these beautiful shimmers. You have Cyborg, which is like a taupey shimmer. Beautiful color, a beautiful gold. You have also like a kind of grayish toned shimmer. I mean, it's just a beautiful palette. And this palette I gravitated a lot towards because if that day I felt like doing a neutral look, I can do that. And if I decided I want to put a little bit of shimmer on my lid, I could do that as well. I even did a gray look with this last year in 2020, which was one of my absolute favorites. So yeah, this was definitely one that I reached for a ton and used a ton. Okay, next one is the Subculture palette from Anastasia right there. Now, these two Anastasias I don't believe you can get. I have seen the Sultry and the Subculture at TJ Maxx and Marshall's, so you may be lucky enough to find it there. But this palette is just so, so beautiful. When I first got this palette, I was a little afraid of it because it's some of the shades I would say are not in they weren't in my area at the time that I purchased it, but you just have some beautiful colors. You have some greens. You have some really beautiful yellows. You have like a pretty mustard yellow. Then you have more of a, what color would I say? So this one's more mustardy. I would say this one's more on, I don't know what I would say for that one. Anyways, it just has a ton of beautiful shades, and you could see the dips and stuff in there. The palette isn't very clean. I did forget to clean it, but it just has some very, very beautiful shades, and it did really, really surprise me. So this was another one that I reached for a ton in 2020. Okay, this is the Profusion Smoky palette. I have talked about this so many times on my channel. There it goes right there. And this is definitely a smoky palette. This palette was $5 at Target. The pans are huge. You definitely get a ton of product, but you have your more neutral colors, and then you have some purples in there, and then like a mauve toned shade, some glitters. But I absolutely love this palette. I almost always gravitate to this palette unless it's hidden behind another palette of mine. But if I were to go over and look at my palettes and decide which one I want to use that day, and I saw this one before any of the others, or it wasn't hiding behind another palette, I would definitely pull this. For $5, you cannot beat it. Now, I know that Profusion came out with some new palettes and new formula. They're $5. They're bright palettes. I forgot what they're called, but they have yellow, orange, blue. To me, those are not the Profusion quality that I'm used to. But when you find them in this one, this 10 pan like this, 10 shade palettes, those are the formulas I'm used to. I do believe on their website they are still $5. You can still get this palette and many others in this format, but I absolutely love this and definitely recommend that palette there. This is the Lorac Original Unzipped palette, and this is a older palette in my collection. And I almost did declutter this year, actually in 2020. In the beginning, I was going through and I was going to declutter this because I hadn't reached for it a ton at the beginning of the year when I was doing my start of the year palettes and going through and seeing which ones I reached for. But in 2020, I reached for this thing a lot. I fell back in love with it. I realized and remembered how great the shades were, how beautiful it is, an all neutrals palette with some rich tones in there for, you know, smoky eye if you wanted to, or an eyeliner effect, which I like to use it for. But yeah, it's such a beautiful, beautiful palette. I did use this one a ton. It had a little circle when it started in 2020, but now you could see the usage in that. I did try to get some more pan in the other shades, but unfortunately that did not happen. But this one did get a dip in it. This is one of my favorite colors right here. But yeah, I absolutely love this palette. This was definitely one that I reached for a ton. I'm glad I did not declutter it. I love it. And the quality is just really, really good. I will say I can tell it's getting a little old because it's getting those like bubbles on the top, but it hasn't gotten a bad smell yet. So I'm going to continue trying to use it as much as I can until it gets to that point that I have to pass it, that I have to trash it, excuse me. Okay, a few more. These are two palettes that I picked up in the beginning, I want to say, of 2020 at Dollar Tree. This is the LA Colors 4 Quad. This is in Fab 4. Right there. Just a beautiful palette. It has a matte brown, a gold and blue shimmer, and then a matte blue, like navy blue type of color. And then this is the other one. This is the rosy, and it looks like that. And this one has like a more muted matte brown, dark brown, and two shimmers, a maroon and a gold. And these palettes are just so beautiful. I have to say, the quality on these shadows definitely surprised me. The first time I used these, I could not believe how good they were. I had to go back and get more, which I did, not for myself, but for some of my YouTube friends and other friends, you know, that are not on YouTube. I had to pick them up some because they were just too good to not share and tell people about. I believe I sent some, one or maybe two, to several of my YouTube friends. And yeah, and I've seen them use them on their channel. They love them, and I'm so glad because I love them as well. But these are great palettes. I haven't seen them again since the time that I purchased them, but this is, to me, in my opinion, one of the best LA Colors formula out there. And so if I ever see these again at the Dollar Tree, I would definitely pick them up for giveaways, for gifts and things like that. But these are two of them that I definitely reached for a lot in 2020. Okay, this is the ABH Norvina Collection Pro Pigment Volume 2 Mini Palette. That is what the outside looks like, and this is what the inside looks like. Just a fun, fun palette. Now, I purchased this, I want to say, okay, when I purchased this, it was an accident that I even got this shade. I actually was trying to get a more neutral palette, one of the small ones. I can't remember which one it is. If I recall, I will put it on the screen, but it's the one that has, it's a mini, but it's the one that has the white background with the black writing, more of like the mauve pinks and purples. Anyways, I ended up with this one, and when I got it, I was just like, oh man, you know, it's not really my cup of tea. I was barely getting into pops of color and things like that. But this palette definitely in 2020 became one of my absolute favorites. I love this little palette. The shades are so pigmented. I did so many looks with this, so many looks that I loved, and will constantly redo. But yeah, this is a beautiful palette. I loved it. The shades blended beautifully, and it really did surprise me. And even though you have these greens and these oranges in here, I wouldn't say they came out on the eyes so bright. Like, they're pigmented, but they weren't like boom in your face. And they blended so nicely. So this one I absolutely love. Although I didn't mean to get this shade range, I love it. And so yeah, this was one that I definitely reached for a lot. Okay, the last three are from ColourPop. I have shared these palettes with you guys so many times on my channel. These you no longer can get. They were Ulta exclusives. So I apologize, but I have to share them with you guys because these will always be some of my favorites from ColourPop. These will always be palettes I reach for because they're just absolutely beautiful. These are the Bird Collection ones that they sent to Ulta. And I almost didn't buy them, but I'm so glad that I did because these are some of my most loved palettes always. Now in 2020, definitely did a ton of looks, but I absolutely love these, and they'll probably be my favorite again this year. I will probably pull them just like I did last year. But this is the Night Owl. Right there, it's more of a brown toned. This is the Birds of Paradise. This one's more on the orange side. And this is Lovebird, which is more on the pink side. So I'm going to quickly show you them, even though you guys have seen them so many times on my channel. This is what the inside of this one looks like. Just absolutely beautiful. Every shade is pigmented. You do have a little fallout, which doesn't bother me. It's fine. You have these three beautiful glitters here in the middle. And they are absolutely gorgeous. Then you have a couple shadows in here that are that formula of what you're used to from the ColourPop consistency, where it's like that gel feel, like the highlighters. So you have that in here as well. I absolutely love these palettes, and I'm so glad that I have them. So that was the Lovebirds. That's the more pinky toned one. It's just a beautiful, beautiful palette. It kind of resembles the Natasha Denona one that I just showed you guys at the beginning of the video, kind of the colors. But yeah, it's just one of my absolute favorites. And then the last one is the Night Owl. That is what it looks like. Just absolutely beautiful. It does not have any pressed glitters in this one as well. It's just a few shimmers and a matte. But they're just beautiful, beautiful. They feel so creamy, so buttery. Again, with ColourPop, you do have some fallout, but that doesn't bother me at all. If it bothers you, then you may not like ColourPop's formula. Some have more fallout than others, but these are very, very decent. And these three I definitely gravitated towards in 2020 and wanted to pull constantly. Honestly, guys, no one needs this many palettes. As I showed you right now, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 palettes I showed you today. Palettes that I gravitated and used a ton in 2020. So if this was all of my eyeshadow palettes collection, this would be a great collection in my opinion. At least for me, because they're some of my favorites. And you have a variety and versatile. Goal is this year to use a lot more of my products. And I have a ton of stuff, obviously, being here on YouTube. So if this was all I had in my collection, these 11 palettes, I would be good. But obviously it's not. And so therefore my goal this year coming up is to use what I have, a lot of what I have, figure out if I do love it or not. Again, that's something I worked on last year. Maybe not as well as I could have done, but my goal is to definitely go through and see things that I actually love and things that I may not love so much and could be parted with. So these are definitely 11 palettes that I would not part with, especially these ColourPop ones. I don't have any urges or anything to be passing these anytime soon. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this was me just sharing with you the palettes that I most reached for in 2020, ones that I would constantly reuse and pull. So let me know down below if you had a favorite palette last year that you just constantly gravitated towards and constantly wanted to use, and you had to give yourself a timeout from the palette, Or if there was more than one, let me know that down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you were loving in 2020. If it was a face palette, I'd love to hear that. Because now we have these face palettes with tons of products in them. And, you know, those can become favorites as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, I would love for you to go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not subscribed, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to come and join my channel and watch more videos from me, it would be so appreciated. But I thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a blessed day and a blessed week. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.